Managing multiple clients or large websites? Automate your SEO with Ali AI. Start your free trial now.
Taylor Swift is a link builder. There were rumors that she would get engaged. Our client said, let's give them a free wedding venue. And then we got them 50 links. That's digital PR.
Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Brighton SEO's Tech SEO panel. Thank you for making it all the way up the many, many flights of stairs. Everybody coming in short of breath, but you made it and are drying off the sweat from your brow. So thank you, everybody. So we've got a great panel here for you today. We're going to start with some introductions and then dive right into it. So first off, we have to my left, we have Nikki Halliwell. She runs a freelance tech SEO consultancy. She also leads technical SEO at the performance marketing agency Journey Further. Nikki enjoys working with e-commerce websites and ensuring that websites are easy to find, load quickly, work efficiently, and promote a good user experience. Now, hopefully, everybody in this room has just come from Nikki's talk on how to overcome SEO challenges in website migrations. So I'm sure that was wonderful. But for those of you who are kicking yourselves right now and saying, why did I miss it? The Brighton SEO gods will be good to you, and that you will be able to catch it in the replay when that comes up in a couple weeks. So maybe she'll share some insights on website migrations here this morning with us as well. So moving down to my left, we have a man who has notoriety on the same level with Prince as just being identified as one name, Saji. And he is the senior tech SEO at Stylite, with 9 years experience in technical SEO and e-commerce, and loves using Python in everyday SEO routines. Now, you can catch his talk tomorrow at 3:20 p.m. He's going to be talking about using Python to create 1,000 Google Search Console properties in 3 seconds. That's right. Not 4 seconds, not 2 seconds. Exactly 3. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then last but not least, we have Giulia Panozzo, and she is the neuromarketing consultant at Neuroscientive. I'm going to be saying the word neuro a lot in the next couple seconds. So she serves as director of customer acquisition for a global marketplace as well. She has an MSc in cognitive neuroscience and clinical neuropsychology, and worked in academic research publishing internationally before then. Now, she uses that background in neuroscience research to drive customer acquisition leads informed by cognitive patterns and bias, which sounds absolutely fascinating and very unique. Now, you have a decision to make tomorrow at 3:20 p.m., but there's only two choices. You can either see Saji's talk, or you can come see Giulia's workshop on testing in SEO. So I'm not going to say which one you should go to, but there are only two choices here. It's going to be great no matter what you choose. So we're solving all of the world's technical SEO problems here today, this morning. We will be opening it up for questions. So if you've got burning technical SEO questions, start thinking them in your mind now. We will call out in just a minute. But first, we're going to kick things off with our first question. We're going to do a really easy one. So here's the long question. Some aspects of technical SEO that require big changes, like changing URL or site structures, redesign, CMS migrations, etc., include a decent amount of risk. How do you balance the risk reward when determining does it make sense to move forward with the change? And I'm going to throw that to you, Nikki.
No pressure with the first answer. First of all, you should go and watch the talk that I've just done all about migrations. I'll give you lots of information to help with that. But what we've done a few times at Journey Further is we do a risk analysis. So we'll look at what exactly is changing. We'll look at the URLs affected by that. And we'll also look at the rankings and the traffic that those pages currently have, how they're performing, and then we're able to factor that in with various risk factors, looking at how they're going to be changing and what they look to gain or lose by making those changes. we've done it for a few really large e-commerce sites, as well as ones that are smaller and more service-based. So obviously the risk is different for those sorts of sites. And then depending on what the outcome is, we're able then to make the necessary recommendations, whether to go or no go, and guide them along the path with the necessary recommendations.
Do you have any examples of a time that you kind of counseled a client to say, this is not worth the risk?
I did it, what day are we on? It's Wednesday. I did it this week.
Okay, let's hear about it.
It was a freelance client, so they sell sandals in various shapes and sizes and colours, and the site just wasn't ready. It still isn't ready. I think they're going to go live regardless. I've told them not to, but clients be clienting. But yeah, the couldn't crawl the site. The navigation was only accessible on click. So search engines can't click. So search engines can't find the links in that page. They thought it was fine. And then, I had to put a case together as to why it's not. And then they did fix it, but then they fixed it so that it was that the links in the nav become visible on hover, which worked in the sense that I was able to call the site, but still, not something that we would have recommended. So I provided them with more information on what they would need to do. I can crawl the site now, so that's something. And we're able to do the redirect mapping. But yeah, I had to say, if you do this is what the risks are. And also, if you launch when I'm at Brighton SEO, I'm not around, so it's on you if it goes wrong.
Anybody else have any thoughts on that? How do you balance the risk reward on whether to go forward with a big technical SEO change?
I want to say testing, that's when, my talk comes in. But because I'm really bad at conveying, I think, authority, then I always rely on the data. And that's when I learn to test the changes first, if it's available, because then, they can't fight what the data says. So I use that quite a lot to assess risk. And to be honest, sometimes when you have a big site, then you have to look at your markets as well. Is it a big change, but is it a market that maybe is not your biggest one? So for example, because of engineering releases, there was a technical change that went on recently on the marketplace I work for, and it affected localization as well. Local markets. So it was fine for the US market, but for one international market, the titles were all wonky. So they came out with, empty fields, which is not ideal. Obviously, if you're targeting to a consumer in France, you want them to sort of read something that reads right, and that's not wonky. But we decided not to roll back because at that point, it was quite challenging to roll back singularly that one market. So we're going to have to do it with manual changes. But yeah, that's where we kind of took the risk because it was more worth it for the bigger market.
Very interesting. And when you say, without getting into your entire workshop tomorrow, when you say SEO testing, how do you test something like that? How do you test a CMS migration? How do you test, a huge batch of, 10,000 redirects?
So you take batches that are, for example, not your lower tier, not your higher tier, obviously, but something middle ground. So you take that as a test group. You can use another group of the same size and the same average traffic to benchmark and see actually what the change brings.
So you're moving those changes to production and seeing how that's affected?
Yeah, that's normally what I go for because we've got we don't have a tool that does the testing for us, but there are some tools that can do it for you and can release changes at the server level so that it doesn't really have to go into production straight away. And I think leveraging those tools is amazing if you have the chance to do so. But otherwise, yeah, it goes into production, you test it on a subset that's not necessarily your highest traffic pages.
Yeah, sure. I think my own feelings on the subject are the answers in the question itself. Just actually putting together the risk-reward scenario, the pros and cons, is half the battle, because I think there's so many sites where the technical team or somebody high up makes the decision, hey, we're going to do it this way, and don't even stop to say, well, what are the risks of doing this versus what are the rewards? And just having that conversation and putting it very clearly, what could go wrong, and let's say everything goes perfectly, what kind of uplift can we expect from this? And a lot of times when you put in that perspective, it becomes clear that maybe you shouldn't go live with this. If people, a couple weeks ago, somebody wanted to, huge site, hundreds of thousands of URLs, wanted to move to a flat URL structure because they said, well, we're kind of future-proofing this so that in the future, if we need to restructure things, we don't have to do redirects. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds, you can deal with that when you come to it. Don't just change 500,000 URLs now because you might have to change them later. Sounded crazy to me. Anyway.
I think it works both ways as well, with looking at the risk factor, because there's something that I do in my tech work, and it's a calculator that I've created called Revenue at Risk Calculator. And I use this in my tech audits, and whether it's a migration or whatever the case may be. Obviously, you need to get stakeholders on side so that they understand what you're wanting to do. But saying fix these canonicals and these are the reasons why is often not the level of detail that they need. So I use this calculator, and it basically says, if you don't make this fix, this is the revenue that you risk losing. And often that's a nice big and motivational number that soon gets things pushed through the pipeline. So it can work both ways with...
Yeah, I like that. Okay, what's the most common technical SEO issue you encounter that's easy to fix and offers the most uplift? Saji, you want to take that one for us?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's what I'm seeing, in most of the websites that I've analyzed, they have the internal linking issues. So they have broken links, and it's also affects the crawling and also the page rank juice, going to the other pages. So I think this is very easy to solve, and you can use most of the tools that you can use, Dragon Metrics, and also Screaming Frog and other tools to find the broken links. So I've seen most of the websites actually are hurting from having these the links, and yeah.
Anyone else have an opinion here?
Yeah, I would double down on that as well. I've had, maybe content teams come to me, say, hey, we've just done this optimization sprint and we released these new pages. We put a lot of content in. We made sure that we do all of the SEO things that you taught us to do. And I'm like, great. And then can you check the impact of that? And I'm like, sure. And then the pages were orphaned. So there wasn't no way to access them ever. Other than by direct link. So yeah, I think that's something that became very apparent and needed to be also in the guidelines for wider teams, because obviously that's something that's very familiar to us as SEOs, but other teams getting in contact with the SEO reality of it might not be aware of all of the simple things that are actually bringing a ton of value.
I also wanted to mention that in big websites, they have their own internal linking tools. And the most important issue that I've seen that is the anchor tags. So for example, in an e-commerce website, you have the pages, but the context is different. So you are, you are linking back to Adidas or Nike or something. But also at the same time, you're using wrong anchor tags to linking back to those pages. This is very important also.
Nikki, do you have a favorite?
My favorite would probably be canonicals, which I've already mentioned, but it comes back again to the sandals client that I mentioned. So not only was their nav screwed, but with all of their products, so each of their sandals, they're available in a different colour, but they're also available in different shoe sizes, as we would expect. And the way they'd set up the URL structure, each product was set up as a variant, but that was, so you had, mysandalwebsite.com/page pink sandals. But then that had a variant that was like a query parameter, which was then canonicalized back to the naked URL. But I couldn't access that naked URL because that redirected back to the variant, and it was just sending me in a cycle, in a circle, and you couldn't actually access the products. That, you know, they were all essentially no indexed. So we had to have a conversation with them about updating their canonicals, but also more importantly, updating the URL structure to be what it should be, and getting rid of those variants, and, you know, having the default product for each colour, you know, have them set up separately, and if you need the variants for the shoe sizes, that's fine. We can work around that. So we had to do two with that one, but the first thing that I spotted was the canonicals, and that led me down that rabbit hole. But I do like the way that a lot of issues can be fixed by looking at the canonicals, and especially with, you know, facets and parameters and everything.
Yeah, very nice. Well, I think it's time to open things up to the audience. For any questions on technical SEO you guys might have, just raise your hand. Please wait until the microphone comes your way, and we'll see what we can do to help.
Right. Talking about your canonicals, I've got to block those. Do you index them? You set them for index, your canonical.
I can't really hear you. Can you say that?
Sorry. Do you actually set them to index your canonicals?
In the particular example that I just gave, yeah, we did. Yeah.
So all your canonicals you index, you set them for index.
Yeah.
Just like I do a screaming frog report, and I've just done. We sell 5,000 products, and I've kind of come into it, and a lot of them are not indexed, and you're like, right, okay, this doesn't look right. So I'm just thinking, right, what do you do with yours?
I don't want to be that typical SEO that says it depends, but I'm there. But you'd have to look at what the products are. Like, are they all 5,000 unique products? Are they like all variants, or what are they? There
will be some obviously unique ones and some variants. So there could be. So for example, your example of what was it? Say trainers. You could have, obviously, if you had different sizes of trainers, then that's fine. But that's not always the case. They could be non-indexed products, but different products. And I'm looking at the Screaming Frog report thinking, this doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I tend to start off with making them indexable, so with a self-referencing canonical by default, and then depending on what the products are, so with the variants, then I might canonicalize back to the root, depending on what it is. But it's on a case-by-case basis, but I'd start by having them indexable to begin with.
So even variants of a shoe in different sizes, you would index?
For this client, we haven't. So it starts off on with no size, and then you can select your size, because that's the choice that we had to make because of their CMS. But each of the different colours of sandals for this client is a separate product, but the variant is the shoe size, and that is the shoe size is canonicalized back to the default.
Okay.
So the variants in size are basically no indexed through the canonical.
So the variants are no indexed?
In this case, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, fine. And so when you do your internal linking, your anchor text, do you vary that anchor text to what it says? So you could be, size 9, but if you want to see size 8, click here.
Yeah.
But you vary that anchor text as well, so it's going to be a size 8, but on other pages it could be size 8 pink shoes or size 8.
Yeah, I'd always vary the anchor text. It's important context for your users and also for search engines to know what to expect and where they're going to, and make sure you're sending the right signals.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Take a few more. This gentleman here.
Thank you. It's kind of linked to web migrations, but I've got a client who they've got that it's a bar, and they've basically built their branding around their London Bridge bar, and they're switching websites, but they're also switching locations. So obviously it's great because London Bridge bar itself is their branding, but it's also like a great keyword to have. And now they're moving locations and then open up a second location. So it's kind of still the same site, but going to be completely different. I wonder if you've sort of got any sort of advice or anything that's built in, like particularly with the checklist in your talk last, if there's any sort of advice you'd sort of give there, because they're losing like a really, really great, the branding is set up for the keyword.
Is it a separate website, or is it just a different part of the same website for the other location?
Separate website completely.
Is there a reason why it's a separate website?
Sorry, what do you mean? So it's London. It's London. It's the one site, so it's just one site.
Okay.
And then they're switching this website to the new location, which is the same bar, just in a new location.
So is it a different domain then?
Yeah.
Okay. You taking off?
No, you go ahead. I was just thinking, like, it seems to me like keep the same domain.
Yeah.
Would we, the first step, that ship may have already passed, or
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also look at ways that you can localize it. I mean, are the two new bars going to both be within the London Bridge area?
Yeah.
So you could do like London Bridge Bar, Brighton Street, and then London Bridge Bar, other street name, and differentiate them that way. And then you're keeping them within the same website, and you can use internal linking to inform that. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy to talk separately if you've got like more specific questions that you'd like to answer about that. We can talk after this, or you can drop me a message.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
we'll do one more if there's another question.
Hey, so one of my biggest problems, and I'm sure we can all relate, is dev resource. Working with development teams that are pulled in so many different directions, being shouted at by so many different people in the business. How do you navigate that, and how can you better prioritize your SEO fixes over the thing that their boss told them to do 3 weeks ago?
This is great, because that's actually the next question on my agenda, so we can kill two birds with one stone.
You're welcome.
Who wants to take that one?
I can go. So I don't really have a dedicated team of engineers, so that's like a challenge that I had to navigate throughout my career at my current company. And I think where I found the most value was when I could not only cite, we need to do this because it's in the guidelines, but when I could actually get them excited about results. So even something small, just like take the habit of showing them what the impact is on traffic, on rankings, because then they start using the tools themselves and they start getting, more buy-in as well. So I think that helped me a lot. Speaking the language as well, because sometimes what I refer to as, they say something along the lines of exposing something to Google, which is, to me, it's indexing. And I think sometimes the misalignment made some tickets fall off the grid. So just make sure that you have also arenas where you can all connect. It can be, a formal education sort of piece where you have, I don't know, last week I had an SEO bootcamp, and some of the things that are really obvious to us or to them might not be something that we know each other, like for each other. So it was really important to me also to understand what questions they had and what understanding of SEO they had. For example, one of the things that came out were, redirects that pointed to non-indexable locations. I'm like, well, we shouldn't do that. And they were like, yeah, but why shouldn't we? I cannot really understand what the impact is. And really giving them the example, maybe giving a metaphor, like, okay, well, we're telling somebody to take a diversion, and then that diversion either goes consistently to a place that doesn't exist, like a 404 page maybe or something, or to a place that's not accessible, and we're telling them, no, go back. Then obviously it's a non-optimal experience for both users and engines. So yeah, I found that to be really helpful, and also to have, if you can, weekly or bi-weekly meetups. It doesn't need to be anything that's like super formalized or anything that needs to be, you don't need to give them consistently tasks, because sometimes they won't make the time and they won't have even the span to do that. But yeah, really finding opportunities to get them on your team and refer to you and them as a team. And sometimes it's really difficult because they are not part of your team. But yeah, those are the things that have worked for me.
I would just echo exactly what you said. And another common challenge that it sounds like you encounter is everybody's trying to get their tickets through, right? And it's like, well, why is mine more valuable than yours, or vice versa? And they've got their own reasons. We've got our reasons with crawling and indexing, but we're basically speaking different languages, and they don't understand what crawling and indexing is, whereas we might not understand what they want. But they're all really important tickets. But everyone understands revenue. So this is why I use, like what I mentioned earlier, like my revenue at risk forecast, revenue at risk calculator, or you can use like forecasting and things like that. And then, that's a really powerful number that everyone understands, and then that will hopefully get your tickets in above anybody else's.
I love that, thank you.
So along the same lines, I think when a lot of times I'm asked, what's the hardest part of technical SEO? Oftentimes I don't say the hard skills, but it is those soft skills, because that's such an important part of technical SEO, both communicating with development teams and management, but also with stakeholders and clients, and specifically education. Such a big part of technical SEO. So does anybody have any tips on how to educate your clients on technical SEO and how you work that into your workflow?
I'm waiting for somebody else to answer. I know. Because I can do it with, I guess, like stakeholders in my own company, but I feel like sometimes we tend to get really excited and really nerdy about the details, and to them nothing matters. Like, it goes straight over their head. So I think sometimes the challenge is keep it simple while conveying the value of the technical changes that we make. But to be honest, I haven't mastered that yet. So
well, I think nobody's quite mastered it yet. I think from my perspective, I think the importance of it comes down to managing expectations, and to I think from the agency side, I think a lot of agencies feel the pressure from clients. They say, I don't want to know about this. I hired you so that I don't have to think about it anymore. And so that's a challenge, because you still want to take the sale, but at the same time, you need to bring the client on board to say, like, hey, this is going to be better for everybody if you come along with us, and you're involved here, and not just we're throwing this problem at you guys. And same thing internally, to manage expectations of what's going to happen and why and how.
Also, I wanted to mention talking the common language with the clients and the other stakeholders also, it helps. So if you're talking about INP, FCP, like these kind of technical SEO, they won't be understanding what are you talking about. But if you're just mentioning if our website if we improve our core web vitals, and it's going to be leading to have a conversion increase by 20% or something, so they're going to be interested in you're talking. So this is very important.
I find it really hard though to commit to a metric, and I'm keen to understand how you do it, because whenever they ask me for forecasting, I'm always quite wary of saying, well, we'll get these many. I can say we'll get these many clicks probably, but the path to conversion is so deep, and I feel like we cannot really take into account all of the variables, and I find it really hard actually to commit to a number. So how do you guys do it?
So yeah, it's very hard to actually estimate if you just improve your core web vitals, it's gonna be having this amount of conversion rate or something. But for I don't know, in your category pages, your INP is not good. So the INP correlates with the clicks, and the events are clicks and scrolling. You can kind of correlate if your INP is going to be better, and INP is the most important factor in core web vitals, in my opinion. You can kind of have estimation, but I agree that you cannot actually be 100% sure that it's going to be like this.
Yeah, and I find it challenging because we can always commit to that based on actual numbers and forecasting, but then when you don't deliver on that, you kind of lose the trust. I feel like, and people don't really buy into SEO because also with whatever is going on at the moment, in the way that the landscape's changed in the past year, I still find myself being challenged to get the same numbers as last year. And even when we have the same rankings, it's not even the same conversion rates, because it's just changed.
I think it comes back to what Simon was saying about setting expectations, and in the way that you explain your forecasts and explain to them that it is a guide. You're not saying, I guarantee you these numbers, because as SEOs, we can't guarantee anything. But one of the things that I found to be useful is if I am doing a forecast or anything along those lines, I create different versions. So I might call it like good, better, best, or conservative and stretch targets, or whatever the case may be, depending on the scenario. And that also depends on the level of investment from the client. And then amazing. That helps to manage that sort of awkward conversations.
Yeah, and also I have the experience. So it was like, I don't know, like 5 or 6 months ago that Google introduced the carousel product. Like you can see in the search, like it comes for website that use the schema markup, item list schema markup. It comes in the meta description. You've all seen that, I'm sure. So I talked with the stakeholders we need to actually implement item lists in category pages and also product and enrich those schema markups. But the question always was, do we need right now? Do we have the manpower to do that? But when you talk about it's like after 3 months, it's going to be all over the SERP. You need to actually do that right now, or you're going to lose your traffic. And you may actually get more traffic because it's like SERP is like changing and Google is like dominating all of the queries related to shopping. And you may actually get more clicks on product cards or these kind of areas.
All right. Well, thinking about our next topic, I'm realizing that I forgot to do something. Forgot to introduce myself, because this next topic is near and dear to my heart, but it's not going to make sense. So, by the way, my name's Simon. I'm co-founder and CEO of Dragon Metrics. And so I've been doing SEO since 2007. And kind of my claim to why am I here for technical SEO is about a decade ago, I built Dragon Metrics Crawler. And when I tell people, if you really want to understand technical SEO, try building a crawler from scratch yourself. You're going to find out what a mess the web is and the millions of edge cases that you never thought you'd experience when doing so. So crawling the whole web and building your own crawler to do it, that'll be a crash course in teaching SEO. So considering that that's kind of my background, I see everything from an SEO tools point of view. We've got a really interesting one that came to us. It says, when should you buy a tool focused on tech SEO versus developing something in-house? Now, I have very strong feelings about this, but Nikki, what do you think?
We've done both at Journey Further. So depending on the need and what it is, we'll spend money where we need to or develop something bespoke if that is the case. And sometimes it can be as simple as something that me and my colleague Charles have done recently, which is when we do a tech audit, we display in a certain way. Basically, it's like a radar chart that we use that is broken down by category, and it says most of your tech issues are in this category, and it helps to understand why we're focusing on certain areas. And I use that as an example because sometimes it's not always a case of trying to reinvent the wheel. The thing that you need might already exist, you just need to position it slightly differently. But Journey Further, we've got quite a few tools. We've got like Clarity Lab, we've got like a link relevance tool that we've built, and too many to count. Dan in the front row will tell you all about the tools in more detail than I can if you're interested. But yeah, we'll do it where we need to, but if somebody's doing it better and it's going to make more sense for us to use that, then we absolutely will.
Very interesting. I think where I'm coming at it from is I would probably recommend to people, unless you have a really good reason to build it in-house, I would say, oh my gosh, do not do it. Because people always underestimate how much development costs can be. And you can get a prototype up and you're like, oh, but it doesn't work for that edge case. We'll just do a little bit more. Oh, it doesn't work for that edge case. And then you're deep into a project that still doesn't accomplish the first thing that you're going to do. And so maybe my answer would be different a decade ago, but in 2024, we have no shortage of SEO tools and SEO APIs that are out there that will do almost everything you can conceive of. And even if it doesn't do exactly what you need, you can still piece it together from, patching this tool into that tool. And yeah, there might be a manual step in between, but it's going to be way easier and way cheaper to leverage that than to build it yourself. So I would say 9 times out of 10 when somebody says, oh yeah, but I got this idea, nobody's done it before. And it's like, well, there might be a reason for that, but there might still be a time to build something yourself. Now I say this as somebody who 13 years ago accidentally built our own tools and started this company internally. So be careful, you might end up working at a tools company for 13 years if you start your own project as well.
I think also it depends on the website size. So if you have a website with more than 1 million pages. So sometimes you need actually to have the software or something that you create. So we have some internal tools that we've created for internal linking purposes or different areas. So I think if you have a very large website and you do need very specific, so you don't need dashboards or something, you just need something very important just to be done. So
I think that's a great point. I think there's a reason why our sales guys, Amazon.com rarely is in the market for SEO tools. It's like, yeah, when you're on that side, you can probably build something almost to the scale that some of the smaller SEO tools out there. Okay, let's take another moment as the questions have been building up in your heads. Let's answer some more questions from the audience if they exist. Don't be shy. Right in the middle there.
Hi, question for Nikki. Would you be able to talk through the methodology for your revenue risk calculator? I'm just thinking through how it could work in certain cases. So it'd be nice to know how it works in a practical sense.
Yeah, it's awkward to explain without having an example behind me that I can walk you through. But on a top level, I have 2 versions of it, both of which are on a spreadsheet. But on one tab, I'm looking at the issue on an entire site scale. And on the other, I'm looking on a URL per URL basis. But I'm looking at the last month and the last 12 months worth of data, depending on each of the metrics. But I'm looking at things like clicks and impressions. I'm looking at the click-through rate and the average order value. And I use a formula to help forecast some of that. And then usually by this point, we've also done a tech audit. And each item will be weighted based on the size and the severity of that. So when it's gone through the calculator and I have a relatively finished value, I'll then multiply that by the percentage weighting. And that's used to give me the final revenue at risk. I can probably show you an example later because I realise that's not easy to visualise. There's a lot of formulas in there, but a lot of the data that you do need equally is available in Search Console, GA, and all that sort of things. And that's what I use as a base level to get the data that I need. And then if I'm looking at an individual page level, I enter each of the individual metrics for each page, and then add them together at the end before multiplying by the weighting factor. But yeah, we can chat.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I would really enjoy that. But just one additional question: do you have the converse of that, a negative thing? Say for the migration example, don't do this because you'll be 20% worse off, or something like that. Is that?
Yeah, and it's similar to what was asked in the first question. But yeah, we've certainly done it with a few large e-commerce sites where it's like, yeah, if you're going to make this certain change in your migration, this is what you risk losing. So I haven't done it on a per issue basis, but that's a good idea. Maybe that's something that I should look at. But in terms of like a big sweeping change for migration, I've done it that way. But yeah, I'll have a think actually and see what I can do with that. You've got me thinking.
Thank you. Really insightful. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Give it a couple more seconds in case people are, I'm not going to ask until one more person asks. Okay, there's nobody now. Okay, now I think I'm ready to ask the question. Okay, well, if we have solved the world's technical SEO questions, we can move back to our own. So, the world of SEO is always changing, and technical SEO is bottomless in terms of how much you need to know or could know, and we're always improving, each one of us, or should be. So, what are the best ways to get deeper and learn more about technical SEO?
Subscribe to Nikki's newsletter.
Excellent.
Thank you. TechSEOtips.co.uk.
Yeah.
All right.
To be honest, like I feel like the most of my experience, or like the most of my knowledge came from failing, from like having to go through something, seeing it not work, seeing it work sometimes, which was not nice. So yeah, I think you can get a lot of information from outside sources, obviously, like Nikki's great newsletter, then there's, the specialized blogs as well, but there's only so much that you can actually put in practice, because it's so, like, the guidelines are common, but then the websites are different. Even when they have the same setup, you got different audience, you've got different sets of pages, different ways that if you have an e-com, that, for example, filters are created. And I feel like I've worked for a few e-com now and then marketplaces as well, and there's not been somewhere where it has been the same, or the challenges have been consistently leading to the same solution. So I think, you just really have to sink your teeth in.
And talk to people, ask people. I mean, there's a lot of great resources out there, like you mentioned, with like the blogs as well as my newsletter. But there's a lot of other really great training courses, and there's some really niche ones that will help you in certain areas if that's what you need. But also, whether you're working in-house or an agency, speak to your colleagues, speak to your managers. They've probably been in the industry longer than you have. And if you're facing a certain problem or you're not sure what to do in a certain thing, just ask them. That's an invaluable free resource right in front of you. And even if they don't know the answer, they'll probably be able to point you in the right direction or sit down with you and help you figure it out together. Just ask. I mean, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I'm sure we've all heard that cheesy saying before, but it's true, and it might be something that maybe even your manager didn't know, but you can sit down and figure it out together, and that's like a really powerful learning for both of you.
I like that a lot, because tech SEO can be a slow process. And so if you're trying to gain experience quickly, how many sites do you get to work on in a quarter or a year or something like that? But it's about use cases, case studies. And so if you don't have those experiences yourself, talk to others and hear what have you been working on? How did that go? What did you solve? What worked? What didn't? And learn from those things to kind of learn from everybody else's experience. And certainly for everybody who attends Brighton SEO, I say the talks are great, especially the ones that we're in. But what you really should be here for is the networking, because the level of experience in this building is just unbelievable, and that's why you should be here. So.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted also to add to create a website of your own and do whatever Google tells you, do the opposite. to understand, like, is it going to be, like, something that you're going to be getting something. So, for example, every website, like you see, they have the sitemap in their robots text, like these days. So you can, this is something I've done, that just you don't add this one, or even like, in larger website. So, and my website actually got like, more visitors or something, and so, but you don't mention that. Nobody needs to know, actually.
So I'll go ahead and give my standard answer. Whenever anybody says, how do I improve technical SEO? Like, there's a lot of like great like roadmaps out there that kind of show learn this, then this, then this. My favorite way is, if you don't have one of those, I say open your SEO tool. I mean, I'm always thinking SEO tools, but I really do think this is a great way. Open Screaming Frog, Sitebulb, Dragon Metrics, whatever, and go through every single field that those tools collect about a URL. And do if you see something you don't know, do an absolute huge deep dive into that field. Do some Googling, read resources until you feel like you know what that data point is. Then move on to the next data point. By the time you get through the 250 data points that Dragon Metrics and Screaming Frog like deal with, you can know your stuff. And then you can move on to issues, and then filters, and then integrations. And if somebody knows Screaming Frog inside and out, backwards and forwards, they are a technical SEO master. That's really what it comes down to. So if you just need to paint by numbers, just go through something like that. What I say.
And read the manual in the website, the blog sections in these websites. Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to indexation. What are some impacts and implications of indexing and crawling big e-commerce websites? Saji?
So in big e-commerce websites, so Google always is crawling a fraction of your website. So you need to actually understand which pages Google is trying to to access.
When you're on a very large site, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, in my case, we've had around 700,000 pages, and Google was just requesting about 100,000. So, but there are some pages you need actually Google to index, to crawl those pages, to understand that they exist, and you through these digging, so you have to, you can actually understand there are some problems that blocking Google to access those pages. I think in very big websites, you need to have actually access to the server log file, and to understand how Google is trying to access, not just Google, being whatever. So trying to access, the main problem is most of the time server log file is very big file, and your Mac or whatever, they cannot actually work with these kind of files. So most of the time in our website we've had actually every 7 days the historical data to understand what is going on, to understand and also there is a crawl stats. You can also in this search console you can also access to the crawl stats, but they are not that much. And they are also just for Google, but in the log file analysis, you can access to all of the search engines that coming to your website and to the pages. Yeah.
And you can get really good insights from core stats analysis, can't you? In Google Search Console, it's really useful because there's a section in there that talks about, I can't remember what it's called, but it's something to do with the reason why it's called certain pages. And the two reasons are refresh or discovery. And you can see why it's called certain areas. Is it because it's trying to find new pages, or is it constantly just crawling pages that it already knows about to refresh the content? And you can get really good insights from that. The same with all of the other areas in core stats analysis. I think it's very underused, and it's free, and it's a lot easier to understand than core stat log files. So personally, I would start off with core stats, and then if you don't get what you need from that, then maybe dig deeper into the log files.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. A good part of crawl stats, and I'm assuming that you're talking about this in your talk, Saji, but is leveraging the API for the URL inspection tool in Google Search Console?
Yeah, exactly. So in our website, we are getting the products from the shops pages. We have feeds coming from the shops pages. We are creating product detail pages, product comparison pages. So we are adding those in subfolders like PCP, like websites /PCPs and /whatever, or PDP or something. So most of the time, if you have just one property in the Google Search Console, you just have access to the 1,000 threshold of every week. Yeah.
In the UI, you can see 1,000 results.
Yeah.
In the API, you can do 2,000 URLs a day.
Yes, exactly. And also you have the limit to request from the API 2,000 for every property. So what we've done, we've created. So you have to also attend my talk because I'm giving some insights. So for every account in the Google Search Console, you have the limit to add 1,000 properties. 1,000, for example, you have main properties, you have also /1, /2, these are the properties. And so you can also add those and also get the granular data, like in the page sections, also itself in the Google Search Console, but you can get more data under in subfolders in the Google Search Console.
Yeah, essentially it's a shortcut. People think, oh, the limit is 2,000 URLs. Well, I've got 9 million URLs on my site. That doesn't do me any good. Google Search Console site is not the same as domain. So by splitting your domain up into 1,000 different properties, that's 2,000 times 1,000 every single day. And then you can get a ton more data via the API, and that does work. In fact, there are some tools that can do it for you. One of the tools that does it, there's the water bottle on stage of that logo, but I won't mention what that tool is. Yeah, that's a really important way because you just need this visibility, and the Google Search Console interface just isn't detailed enough, especially for large sites, but even any site more than 2,000 URLs, you're going to run into those issues. We got a little bit more time left. Just in case a question has popped up, going to open it up one more time. You can now or forever hold your peace. All right, let's go to another area that's very deep and close to my heart, which is reporting. How should we be reporting on technical SEO? Giulia?
So I think my perspective has changed since we've completed the questions, since we last talked about the questions at least. So I used to use other tools that we have internally to report on technical SEO, but then I realized that I don't think they give stakeholders or even collaborators the full picture. Because we don't speak the same language, and they want to see, okay, I don't care how many URLs now are indexed versus no indexed. I want to know, I don't care how many redirects we launched. What do we get out of that? So I try to always give an introduction of why I'm showing what I'm showing, but I tend to now report on metrics that my stakeholders care about, like clicks, and then rankings. Although rankings, to be honest, right now is really tricky because even when you have a really high position, you have all of the carousel that takes up a lot of the space, a lot of the clicks. And I don't think it's a straightforward journey even to convey that change right now. But yeah, mainly I would report on the effect of technical changes rather than what we actually implemented. Although I do keep record for myself because sometimes they'll come to me and they're like, oh, we saw this nice bump in whatever metric they want. And I'm like, yeah, that's when we launched like a number of pages with optimized content on. So it's kind of backwards, but yeah.
Yeah, well, there's reporting for yourself and then there's reporting for stakeholders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that the most important element of reporting on technical SEO is customization, and that no two reports should be the same. And it should depend on which stakeholder you're presenting it to and what your goal is. Even as, an SEO tool provider, I will be the first one to say, for the love of God, do not just take your just standard basic site audit from your SEO tool and just hand that to a client or stakeholder. Oh my gosh, what are they supposed to do that? Don't throw data at people, because that's all that is. You want to customize and be like, well, what's in it for me and why, and explain that. And so you need a reporting tool that is going to be customizable enough that you can create a story and explain it in language that they're going to understand, that prioritizes the things that they need to prioritize, and delivers the value that accomplishes the goals that they're after. And so no two reports should ever be the same, and you're going to need a reporting system that is customized to do that. And it requires thinking and time, which is the thing that is most expensive.
And sometimes I feel, and maybe like you guys have similar challenges as well, reporting on a timeline is quite tricky, because for sure, like when you look at last year, for example, people are like, okay, we've done a lot of things. Our team has deployed a lot of changes, but we're not seeing the same traffic as last year. We're not seeing the same gains that we were like doing a similar deployment last year. So how do you navigate reporting on a timeline that's consistently changing?
Context, as well as, you're sharing the story like Simon said, but like Simon said, also, the landscape is changing, SERPs are changing, Google algorithm is changing, and the competitors are also making their own efforts as well. So it's not just a case of this is what's happened and this is what we did. It's this is what's happening outside of that could be affecting us and is affecting us. And presenting both sides is really useful. And also, just going back to like the original question, I just ask people ask the clients what metrics they care about, what they understand, and what they're KPI'd on, and what is it that their manager is going to be asking them to report on. And if I help them do their job, that helps them look good, which then makes me look good.
Yeah.
So it's just having those conversations and providing context where it needs to be.
Yeah, I think SEO has so many variables, and no metric in SEO exists in a vacuum. So it's all about I like to overlay different metrics on top of each other, and along with annotations. So this is when this technical SEO change happened, and you can see not just one thing, how traffic or revenue does, because there's so many inputs to that to show it all the way through it. Here's the sum of the search volume of our keywords, because maybe people are searching differently or it's seasonal. And then you say, here's our ranking visibility. So then, are we actually, did our rankings go up because of this update? And then also put on the same chart, if you can, your traffic too. So to see all the way through the funnel, because are people actually clicking? That takes you from rankings to traffic and annotating your charts. And so again, get yourself a good tool or build it yourself to be able to annotate and compare different metrics, because nothing, if you just show, correlation is not causation. So you say, we made the change on this date and the rankings or the traffic went up. Well, it could have nothing to do with what your change is, and you need to be able to compare all those metrics to be able to, maybe not, we never can say 100%, but we can nail things down and be like, here's why we think that this was the factor that contributed to the uptick in traffic and not something else.
Yeah, and also, so after you just reported your successful SEO strategies, you need actually to have a graph of comparison with your competitors. So, for example, for us, the CSS's comparison shopping industry, so you're losing traffic, so who's gaining? So you need to actually have a comparison, and you need, and then you see like all of the comparison websites, they are going down. So the Google is gaining the traffic. So, I mean, these kind of you need to compare, after you are doing a good job, but you're losing traffic because of this. And also in international websites, you may understand, in other locales, in Netherlands for us, or US, you are gaining traffic. So you need to understand why is it that happening. The SERP is different in each location. Yeah.
And to add on that, actually, because we were mentioning about reporting, and I feel like the most success I have, or like the most responses I have from stakeholders, is when I show a graph from causal impact, because it's a really nice graph, and it really tells a story if it's a good test. I normally use it for testing, but then like sometimes I had to use it for to justify a change in production that was basically the navigation was all pointing to non-indexable locations, and I was like, this is the date, this is the causal impact on that. And I know, we talked about correlations, not causation, but I think that's a really powerful tool, and you can do it like in Python. There's the scripts out there. I do it in R because it's just easier for me, and I find it clearer. But it's free. It's really powerful to report on, and I encourage everyone to give it a go.
All right, very good. Well, I think we're probably going to leave it at that for today. Let's do one last question.
So basically, I wanted to ask about switching between your reports last minute. So I had a client, and I was speaking to search manager at the company, and I didn't know last minute that the digital marketing director is going to be in that reporting meeting. How do you switch between the metrics or like last minute? So let's say, I knew that the search manager going to be there, and then like 1 hour beforehand, CC'd the digital marketing director. I was like, okay, how do you go about it?
That's a tough one. What do you think, panel?
I don't think I would make any changes. I would add some more contextual details, maybe to give a background on the metrics that you were presenting, but you shouldn't be changing because they added somebody else. At the end of the day, like if you know that your audience is going to speak your language and they care about a metric that you're presenting, then yeah, that's what you need to stick to. And then on their hand, they probably need to do like a bit of, adapting and education. And I think sometimes they just CC people, not because they want the full details, but just for context. I've done the same like client side where I pull in people with my agencies, and I'm like, okay, so now you can literally understand where I'm coming from, where I ask you to, collaborate on a project. So it's not about you, it's about them most times.
I think if it's the primary stakeholder that walked into the room, you don't want to just talk over their head the whole time either. So, I mean, you may not just have a choice. If it's an hour before, you either need to slap together what you can or just dance. If your presentation, took a long time, then you make the presentation to, the practitioners who it's going to be more technical. And then you take a moment to either preface or, add a suffix of, well, here's how that is in our language, and speaking directly to the stakeholder. And hopefully you can, be like, what's in it for me, for everybody in the meeting. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think we're going to leave it at that. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you to the panel. You guys were lovely. And enjoy your lunch if that's what's up next. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.